Hi everyone, hope you can see my screen. I'm Paresh and welcome to the May Entuity Tech Talk. Today's session we're going to be presenting a few strategies used by our customers for Entuity high availability and disaster recovery. With me I have Alex Bruscato, and we are part of the EMEA Systems Engineering team for Entuity. As always, a few housekeeping items before we get underway. The call is on mute to eliminate any outside noise, but feel free to ask questions at any time via the chat panel. We'll have time at the end to take questions that have been posted. So today we'll be using Entuity Network Analytics for the demonstration later. This is commonly known as ENA. For our BMC customers who are joining us today, Entuity Network Analyzer for TrueSites is the name used for BMC customers. ENA is the upgrade to Entuity 16.5. For those of you still on older versions and are planning to upgrade this year, feel free to contact your Entuity systems engineer. We're more than happy to discuss any facets of the new product that may help you devise an upgrade path that makes sense for your organization. Additionally, we are taking a slightly different approach to this tech talk. Entuity's product management are currently considering reviewing the HADR, and as such, any information from our customer base around this topic would be greatly appreciated. So we'll have time near the end where I hope those attending will be able to give some input into technologies that they use today or they'd like, and any specific requirements they have around HADR for Entuity. If it makes sense, we're happy to have one-on-one conversations instead, and just let us know when we can schedule a call for you later. But I'm hoping we can talk a bit today and get some ideas of other things that you are using or have seen in the market. Okay, so with that, let's get started. Start with definitions. It's a complicated subject, HADR, and there's many different definitions for it. So in simple terms, when we in Entuity are talking about HADR, HA we're very much talking around within the LAN, and DR means it's across the WAN at a different site. In more detail, I'll let you read the 2 points around high availability and disaster recovery yourselves. But I'm hoping just so that we're all on the same wavelength, we all understand what we're talking about here in terms of difference between the two. If we then move on to the considerations for HA and DR strategies for Entuity, there's many different things to consider. So these are kind of some of the things that we've discussed with customers as they started to look into HA and DR within their organization. Firstly, every organization is different. What level, if any, do they need for Entuity? Generally, also, we see more requirements around the high availability rather than disaster recovery. Disaster recovery often is more of a policy-driven approach, involves everything from technology to people to equipment and buildings. Also, it's important, it depends on the type of business you are, whether you're an enterprise network or an MSP with multiple customer networks and the SLAs you have against those. So again, that can also affect the strategy you decide. Of course, the size and architecture of your Entuity environment, is it single, multi-server? What other integrations do you have? Do you have single site, multi-site? Again, all these need to be taken into account. Now, just specifically focusing on HA here, what considerations do you have in mind? Are you okay with just having alarms only in the case of HA? Do you need historical data if your main Entuity server is down? What downtime is tolerated acceptable by your business in terms of monitoring your network? Is there a lead time for that? And that very much goes on to recovery point objective and recovery time objective, terms used within the high availability market for how long you can keep a system down and how long length of data you can lose. Also, sometimes HA is required just to provide support for maintenance and upgrades and patch deployments. Is that something that you're considering, or are you okay to take down the servers over a non-business hour to do that kind of thing. And also, of course, without anything to do with IT, there's always the complexity versus benefits. How complex can you make this versus the benefits you will derive from it? So these are just a few considerations that we've discussed with customers who have deployed HA stroke DR with Entuity. So moving on, so what is in use today by Entuity customers? So everything you see here is our live deployments of these HA and DR options by customers worldwide. So I'm going to go into each of these on the slides after this, but at a high level, we've got server and operating system clustering being used. There's customers with Windows cluster server. That's in green because that is what Alex will be demoing soon to you in a live demo to show the moving of Entuity from a one server that goes down and coming up at another. Also, in a similar vein, Red Hat, Veritas, and Neverfail are other operating system clustering solutions that are used by customers of our customers that we know of. We have customers using vMotion. We have customers using third-party data replication. We have validation that Zerto is one that is being used. And there's also a number of customers using dual polling. And finally, there's, of course, manual. I'm not going to go into that in any more detail, but of course, that's just taking a backup of the database and certain other files and having that stored somewhere. So if you do need to do a restore somewhere else, you have the ability to do the latest backup, etc. But that's a manual process. And again, with all of these technologies, we do have customers using a multiple of them together in combination. Okay, so let's move on to the first one, which is the HA server clustering. As I said, Alex will be going into this in more detail through the demonstration. But really, this is just utilizing cluster technology with two servers, an active and passive server. When one goes down, the other one takes over. And so only one Entuity server is active at one time. And that detection and the management of that failover is controlled by the OS cluster manager, whichever one you use. Now, with that, what do you get? You get protection against server hardware failure, OS corruption or failure. There's no protection with this solution for application and data-related failures. And there's no cover for software upgrade patches, as you need to stop the software. Also, bear in mind that failover is not immediate. This is, again, where the RPO, RTO things I mentioned before comes in. So startup of failure system does require initial database repair. Like with any database that suddenly goes down, bringing it up on another server, just need to ensure that the database is performing correctly. And it's important to configure a time delay for that initial database repair, and so that's something that can be done with this clustering technology to allow a bit of a delay before it comes up to ensure that the database repair has completed. And of course, that time delay will partly depend on the size of your database and multiple servers, etc. And the final point here to comment on, of course, that this does require a license for each server as well. So again, it's something that you'll need to discuss with the Entuity sales team if you are considering this approach. The next one is vMotion. That's been around for many years now, and that enables the migration of a running virtual machine from one physical server to another without service interruption. It kind of provides similar protection to OS clustering, but with the exception it does not protect against OS corruption or failure. Again, like with clustering, failover is not immediate, and again there is a requirement for the initial database repair, and also there is no software upgrade patches cover as well. Now, taking a step further, there is a fault-tolerant version of VMware vMotion called vMotion HA. This is feasible. I believe a couple of years ago we may have tried this, I think, at a customer site, although then they didn't go ahead and implement it. But so we don't have a customer utilizing this, but that test was successful. It works with placing an agent on each physical server to act as a heartbeat. So if there's a loss of heartbeat from one server, automatically initiates restarting the affected virtual machines on other servers. And of course, you can prioritize which servers the virtual machines come up in as part of the setup. This slightly improved protection over the vMotion I mentioned before, in the sense that it's automated failover of failed VM from the last snapshot of disk and memory, and the failover is immediate as it doesn't require initial database repair. So again, an option that could be considered. We then move on to third-party data replication solutions. So we have validation from customers who've used Entuity. There are, of course, many other data replication solutions out there, like Rubrik, Commvault, and others. I'm sure it will be a similar approach, but again, we haven't yet validated against any other solutions. Again, here with these kind of data replication solutions, things to consider is the bandwidth, because there is data being replicated continuously to ensure that you've taken that into account. In terms of speed, it's similar to to the kind of HA solution that we've spoken about in terms of VMware, vMotion, and clustering. Flow directories, repositories will need to be renamed in this scenario, and it sometimes can be a bit more complex if depending on what integrations that you have with third parties that you need to also have once the failover has happened. And there is no cover for upgrades, software patches, as again, you need to stop the software. And finally, there's the dual setup, the dual polling. So this is kind of I would say the only true disaster recovery. This is, although HR on the same site and DR on separate sites, so dual polling can be used in the HA scenario. Generally, this is often also used as a DR at the same time, in the sense that it's often set up at a different location. And it's, as I said, it's the only true kind of disaster recovery strategy for an on-premise software, where you have both dual polling with active. So both deployments are engaged and polling the network, and users are just logging into one of the UIs as the primary. And if a failover, if an issue happens with that site, all they have to do is switch over the UI to the other live monitoring setup. So this, in the way it's set up, of course, is going to provide you the greatest level of protection of everything that we've discussed so far. It covers server hardware failure, OS corruption failure, and application and data related failures. Failover is immediate. As I said, users just connect to the alternate system. Provides cover for software and upgrade patches, so you can move everybody over to the secondary one while you upgrade the first, and then switch everybody back to using the primary UI when you then upgrade the secondary one. It does require, again, as you're polling the network in two places, does require discussions with the account management team again around licensing, and of course with this scenario there is take into consideration the manual effort to keep both systems in sync, and any complexities for integrations, again, if required. Sometimes integrations in a secondary isn't required, and systems are sometimes kept separate and not integrated together. But again, depends on your policy within your organization. So with that quick kind of high-level overview of some of the scenarios that technologies used today, and those on the call may already be utilizing some of those or thinking about those or others. And this is where we kind of move on to the demonstration that Alex is going to do in a second. Before we do that, once Alex starts his demonstration, of course, with what I've just talked about, there will be a bit of a gap between the failing during the failover, and so we want to kind of kick off some discussions then, and we'll open up the speakers to kind of get any input from yourselves around, your HADR strategies. What configuration technologies do you use for Entuity or other management solutions in your environment that you think may be useful for something 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 that could be utilized in Entuity. Any specific third-party solutions that we should investigate that you may have seen in trade shows or are utilized elsewhere within your organization? In some ways, your ideal solution, if you had an open chat with our product management, what is it the ideal solution you would want from HA and DR for Entuity, and any other points? So, and at this point, I will hand over to Alex, who will be going into demonstration mode. There we go.
Hey everyone. So for the demo of the high availability with Entuity ENA, we've selected as a strategy to high availability the use of the failover clustering. So failover clustering is a Windows Server feature that enables you to group multiple servers together into a fault-tolerant cluster and provide you new and improved features for software-defined data center customers on and many other workloads running clusters on physical hardware or in virtual machines. A failover cluster is a group of independent computers that actually works together to improve availability and scalability of clustered roles. That was formerly called cluster applications and clustered services. Obviously, physical cables and software are used to connect the cluster servers. If one or more of the cluster nodes fail, the service is provided by other nodes. There's a process that is known as a failover. In addition, proactive monitoring is done to the clusters to verify that they are working properly. If they are not working, they are restarted or moved to another node. So I'm assuming you know a little bit about clusters and why you would want to build one. So I won't go into those details in this particular presentation. That said, let's discuss a little bit about what is the architecture we have built trying to present this demo. We started to set up the demo architecture with two servers. That's our node 1 in test DC, the node 2. So you can see here the IP.10, the IP.12. And then we have added a shared disk. That's our drive F. In our case, the node 1 and node 2 is working with a clustering failover, and these specific storage are stored in another server. After that, we have created a resource that is an IP address that will be called as a client access point. So that is the IP address that the customer uses trying to access this system. And so we have installed Entuity in both sides, node 1 and node 2, and we have stored the remote license file inside of the F drive with an additional node working as a license server. So we have an additional actor on that. That's our node .5. That is using just to provide licensing for both nodes. In that case, you can use in the license server a central license and then a remote license from both nodes. As we have stored that in our drive F, so the same license could work for both servers. That's a strategy trying to avoid to have a different licensing for each server. And finally, we have created a failover resource to monitor the Entuity process in both sides. And in case of a swap of nodes, this resource will start the Entuity process. Okay, after that, the end users are able to access the Entuity server via the client access point, that is the IP address 10.44.45.98 in our case. Okay, that's our scenario. And then let's go for the demo. Okay, so first thing here it is. Here it is our license server. Okay, and in the license server, I have created a service trying to monitor our cluster. So you can see here our cluster is up right now, and we are working with two nodes, the number 10 and number 12. You can see here the same thing. You are pinging the node .10, that's the node number 1, and the node number 12. the node number 2, that's .12. And finally, the client access point that is here, .98. So, okay, let me show. So here, currently we have the node 1 holding the Entuity with the client access point for the same server. And here the node 2 is offline. Okay, just in case, let me show a couple things here. I'm going to log in on that in the client access point. And you can see here, you have currently a user like admin, just one active session. And I'm going to log in the other side with another user. And then you can see the second session here, for the same log, for the same server. And just in case, let me show who is the user are logging in. I should have admin and test HA. So that's admin, that's test HA. That's correct. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now we're going to simulate an outage, trying to see the swap from one node to the other. But to be a little bit more exciting, let us try to do something better. Instead of just simulate, I will power off the node. Okay, it's fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do here I'm going to access via my hypervisor this node, the node .10, and then I will just power off that. Okay, let me see. That's our node. Just let me check the IP address. Should be .10 in the end. Okay, that one. Okay, so I will just shut down that. Better, I will power off that. Okay, and then I'm going to simulate a power outage, for example. So you should see in this side, a request timeout. And you can see in the middle a request timeout as well. And then the middle have back to life because we have swapped for the next server. Okay, so at that side, the clustering is working. Okay, but let me click on it. That's the first node. That's the second node. And that's the third node. Okay, so everything is unavailable. What's happened during this process the first node is down. We'll have swapped all of the servers for the first node here. So the first thing we're gonna do is swap the disk, and then you can see for the resources we have here, I have the IP address. That's the second thing. They're redirected, and then I need to monitor the Entuity process for here. If you take a look on that, let me click on, in properties. That's the process we are working with. So from services, this process is called Entuity. So you can see here, Entuity is running. After that, we're going to see the Entuity database running, and then the Entuity web server. Just when you have the Entuity web server running, we're able to see something in our browser. So let me see, just to check in here. Refreshing. It's still starting. So all of this process should work in around 5 minutes. Depends on the size of database you have. Okay. Yep, set quantity database is running, and then we should see, the Entuity web service is running. So the impact on our side here you should see a 503 page before in both servers here, because Entuity is starting up, and swapping for the second node. Yeah, and the first node, of course, is out, is down. You can see nothing. Okay, just in case, we have configured that in our service to see these as well. Okay, so in a couple moments we're able to see the impact for that in our Entuity instance here. Yep, you can see here the impact. So after that, we can see also an incident for our cluster. Okay, we have a service stage problem. Our service is degraded because the node 10.44.5.10 has an issue. You can see the same thing here for the events dashboard. Okay, when you can see the service was up and then is degraded. Okay. Let's back for that. Let me see here. Yeah, so here I can see the full chain. First thing I can see was an error outage in this node impacting this service, and then we have this guy that's not responding as well. That was rebooted or turned it off. Okay, let us back to our nodes to see if they're back to live or not yet. Okay, not yet.
Alex, while this is coming up, I've just been notified by one of my colleagues in the US, Larry. Thank you, Larry. It's technical support on the on the fly. So the slight addition that I needed to put into the VMware HA option, the high availability option, it cannot use more than 4 CPU cores. So for it to work, so generally it's only that fault tolerance only really works with a single virtual CPU and compatible. So some of our smaller environments, it's fine, but for larger customers, that VMware HA option is not an option to utilize. So apologies, I will redo the slide to include that important information, and thank you, Larry, for letting me know. So I've learned something today as well. There you go. Thanks, Alex. Hopefully, it's now coming up soon.
No, that's coming up. Yeah. Once again, it's all about the size of the database and other things.
Yes.
So the same process when I swap from the first node to the second one, it's like I'm restarting Entuity. During the restart Entuity, we have to start all of the process. We start with a checking database, and then one process another, and then you're going to start the web service. And after a couple minutes, you can see everything. So the swapping is almost immediate, but we spend some time trying to see Entuity live once again.
Okay. So perhaps while we're waiting, then perhaps we should open it up to the audience.
Yep.
Going back to
they're back to live. Yep.
Oh, they're back.
That's
Okay,
right.
spoke too soon.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just to show that there is the same server, I will log in once again in the same server. Should be AntDC in the end. That's exactly the same server, exactly the same one section. I'm going to use the same user here, test AJ. Okay, and to see the second section in the same server. Okay, let me see here. Yep. Oops. That's the second session, and once again, we can see, who is the user logging in. It is test AJ and admin once again. That's back to live. Okay, that's done. Right. We have spent 4 minutes in a small server with a small database trying to recover, in full. That's it. Okay, Paresh, I'm gonna back to you.
So hopefully my screen will come back up. So thanks, Alex. So hopefully you all saw a live HA there using Windows Server 2016 OS cluster. I'm going to then skip 2 slides because I should have done this while Alex was doing it. And we'll move on to the Q&A. And then we're going to have hopefully have some feedback around HA and DR as well. So open up the phone lines. Are there any questions? Or if you want to share your HA and DR thoughts, this will be a good time. As I said, it's something that is going to be looked at by our development team and our research team to see if there's a better ways that or improved ways we can provide the facility with an Entuity. So, are there any questions?
Yep, we have got one question in,
Okay.
and it's regarding HADR dual setup polling. The problem with dual polling servers polling the same devices at the same time is that there will sometimes be discrepancies in the data. There might be slightly different timestamps and slightly different value events might trigger with different timestamps and so on. So how is this handled?
Paresh or
No. So that's exactly right. So that again, that is currently some of the, I guess, limitations we have of that setup. So again, this is one of the reasons why we're currently looking at, our research team is currently looking at other ways to improve the options we have. So yes, there is always going to a bit. I mean, the good thing about that option is it's immediate, and you are going to get events and you are going to get data. But you're right, there quite easily could be slight differentiations between the two setups. From a HA or DDR perspective, it works. It's not 100% accurate in terms of what the one environment's doing is going to be exactly the same as the other in terms of events and timestamps, and that's something that, as I said, is one of the limitations of that approach.
Okay, just to complement that, most of our customers that use dual polling are BMC customers as well. So they currently use a TSON trying to consolidate events and other thing. So what they used to do is they used to send from the dual polling events from Entuity to a TSON to Impact Manager, and then they're gonna do the correlate on that. So in that case, you're gonna see all of the events, but not the difference between timestamps and other things, because instead to use the ID, you're gonna use, for example, other mechanisms trying to index that.
Good point, Alex. Good point. Yeah. So in a BMC environment, Alex said both environments are generally feeding into TrueSight, so it's irrelevant underneath because the timestamps and everything is based on what's coming into TrueSight operations management.
Yep.
Any other questions, Pat?
Yep, there was just one more. And does HA work with Veeam?
Okay, let me take that one. Okay, yes, it works. I honestly have never have tried to do this before, but the concept of being exactly the same of Zerto and should work well. You need to think about that. Intuit, it is a black box, So you have a black box with a database, with a web server, with a Tomcat inside, and then you can use any kind of high availability or just recovery strategy, and should work. But yeah, works.
Not what you
Paresh?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Larry. The question came, someone asked a question about using Veeam. We do have a customer here in the U.S. that are using it.
Right.
And they're using it in the HA environment, and they're actually using it. They're using it in a geographically diverse HA environment. The servers are not in the same data center. But that being said, they're connected by a dark fiber that's running at 10 gigabits, and they're geographically close to each other. So essentially, they have an extension of the LAN for that solution.
Yeah, which is why I mentioned that those kind of solutions need bandwidth consideration.
Yeah, Larry has touched on a good point. Yeah. Bandwidth is key on this kind of thing. When you think about high availability disaster recovery, disaster recovery in geographic places far from one another, we need to consider bandwidth and other things as well.
Right. In this case, they're separate data centers, but they're probably within a few kilometers of each other.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. But good point. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Larry. Okay, so I'm guessing there's no more. So let's just finish off then on what we have here. So Let's just as always, just please look at the resources that are available to you, where you can find information around ENA. There's an updated ENA Help Center that's being updated on a daily basis. It's got it's a simple searchable search engine, and it's got includes a number of videos to aid your understanding of ENA. And also, the team that are working on that are updating on a regular basis with feedback from customers and the SEs as well of things that may be missing today as well. But it's very powerful. And finally, just to wrap up, all tech talks are recorded and available using the Entuity YouTube Center. So feel free to view this one again later, or of course view all the previous tech talks that have happened. The next tech talk scheduled for June the 19th, and the topic for that will be ENA data export. It's your data, make it work for you using third-party applications. So we can hope you will be able to attend that one. If you have any further questions on today's content, be sure to contact us, and we'll be able to help out on that or anything else to do with ENA. Again, if you've got any suggestions on other tech talks, something within the product you'd like to know more about, or some kind of configuration, it's an opportunity for you to send your ideas through to tech.talks@entuity.com. So on that note, thanks for attending today's tech talk, and we look forward to seeing you all again on June the 19th for our session on data export. Thanks all. Have a good day.